So yeah, this is the Wolf. It is it's a grocer slash high-end restaurant. We're standing in the grocery section of the deli slash grocery of the establishment. It's in Brisbane City, heart of the city.
Yeah.
Very nice spot. Very nice spot. And so yeah, we're coming to near completion of the space here. We took over the tenancy about
Started
a
what,
month,
January?
2 months back. Yeah.
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 February. Yep.
About 2 months back, given holidays and everything. But yeah, we've had to work under some very unique circumstances for this job, being a large building, owner with a bunch of guidelines on how we have to operate within those guidelines. So yeah, a bit of a unique tenancy with difficulties of its own, and yeah, we're here.
Yeah, that's it. And I suppose where you guys have played the biggest part is there's so many parties involved in delivering this tenancy, from landlord works, building management, leasing agents to the clients, architects and what they want, and that crossover. It's not just managing our scope of works, it's managing all scope of works, and getting those details and understanding where does the base build services stop and where does our scope start, and that's where the estimation team there has really helped us find out all those details and find out actually what is our scope of works, what do we need to allow for, or what are we going to be assumed that we're supposed to be allowed for that we can't pick up on the plans. And trying to find all those red flags where we could have been in a lot of strife. And I think like you guys have definitely picked it up and has saved us on a lot of areas, that unknowns, even looking at this space of, there's a signed gantry that's coming down here, the structural engineering involved with the design, how to price that, everything, there's brass and high-end finishes everywhere, and how can we achieve what the designer wants, but also how do you know what it's going to cost to get the structural engineer know what he's going to design it for, and then get the steel fabricator to finish it, get the sign guys to fit their thing in, and tie all that together.
So many trades,
There's a lot of detail in it. So I think too is, you can have really nice plans and a lot of details, but there's a lot missing around that detail and what a timber molding is and the finishes on it, all those decorative pieces, how it ties in, is challenging to know. How do we actually build that on site? So, and we've had so many challenges through the project, and for your team to come on site and look at what they've priced up to what was on the plans to how we do it, and then how we, if it's not included, do a variation, and to cost that up to in a way that we can build it, not just off a plan type cost or assumption.
And I suppose the biggest issue is understanding the missing details. So there's a lot of things that the designers don't pick up, obviously, that grows into large problems. So things that they don't think about, for example, the columns outside, which was meant to have a finish on it, and the complexity is putting a finish on those columns, and getting this whole wall built between the existing columns, and the missing details for what the finishes are going to be on the side that we couldn't see. Right. So from the outside, it's important. So the designers picked that up, but they never picked up what the finishes need to be on the side that no one was looking at. So we needed to understand enough about construction to know that we had to put money against something in the future.
Something had to go there.
So there's some money, a risk allowance that we had to put in, that when it comes time to finishing that wall, the side that nobody has thought about has been thought about by the estimation. You've got money to do it. And now you're not towards the end of the job, or when you're constructing it, you don't have to fight about it. With the client and say, I need more money because of this.
Because that's what the shop front was, right? That there was not enough detail in the shop front that we could get. And so there's an allowance for a certain finish. So that was good, because the conversation was, we did allow for it, this is what we allowed. So there is something in there, but if you want something different, we can do that. That's going to cost more. It's not that we just ignored it. We did think about it.
And communicated that to the client, saying exactly, this is what you're going to pay for. The client's paying for something very detailed. It's not one product. The product's so complex that there's missing details on every single aspect that human beings, from the designer to the estimators to the builders to whoever's doing the finishes at the end, has to think about. Hundreds of details on wrong sizes, the step down on the floor which wasn't considered, which we had to consider during estimation.
Yep.
Right. So stepping through, this whole floor had to be built up.
Yes.
Or treated in some way to make sure that the levels are right. This is not something we're going to know before we build.
No.
But we still have to estimate it.
Yeah.
We haven't charged the client any extra for these things. So we've already anticipated these things. Granted, there's some variations which we said we haven't allowed for. It's gonna be a risk factor in the future. But I suppose that what we want is to know enough of how it's built so that we can predict those things, predict that or you're gonna have issues in the future. Same thing with the gantry that we spoke about here. So it's in the ceiling, no one gets to see it, but there's so much steel in the ceiling that needs to go in.
Yeah.
And needs to be fabricated and designed to hold up weight, especially because you got people walking underneath it. And the client's paid for it, but the client can't see it.
Yeah.
So, most of what you're seeing is actually very little of the cost. Most of what you see is very little compared to what you don't see.
What
the structural support in that wall here to house whatever's being housed there. So all the structural support which you can't see and which took time to fabricate and come up with ideas.
Never allowed for in the beginning.
Yeah.
Never designed into it.
And so many hands involved in this. It's not just one. It's not one mind. It's so many different people with different perspectives on one single finish. That like this particular unit has at least 3 trades involved in it.
Yeah.
And 3 trades that don't know each other's scopes.
Yeah.
So we act as the community that brings these ideas together and tries to get them to work together. So we think about the other person's scope as like it was our own scope.
Yes.
And that's key. We're growing and trying to do more of that. We're trying to be more predictive on, okay, you're going to have issues because the designer hasn't thought about this thing.
And I remember that, like you guys organise meetings in the office with say for these shelves that are going here, with the engineer, the steel fabricator, the cabinet maker, for all the brass trims, the electrician doing strip lighting in there, and how that all ties together, and how do they intertwine and without without clashing with each other, but still achieving the design that they want.
Yeah.
It's actually quite a hard thing to achieve, and that alone, like if you guys didn't organise that, and then I'd have that meeting later, that would definitely cost me money because we've priced it to the client saying that we'll deliver it.
Yeah.
But how well we deliver that is a difference in actually what it costs to what we've allowed. So and that's been the big benefit. If I just had one estimator trying to price this whole job up and be over every detail, it just wouldn't be possible. So to have people that worked on, a team of estimators that worked on different areas and collaborating together has definitely added so much value that we can achieve with it in-house. And just that support throughout the project to go, I know we've allowed for something, what is it? How do we get that scope? What is the detail and what's that scope of works that you gave to the tradesman? That we can agree on.
The funny thing about estimations, you can price anything after it's built. You can price anything after it's built. It's predicting the future is not something anyone can do, and this is what estimators are asked to do this consistently, which is predict the future. It's hard. It's harder than it seems. But we're gonna go about this, in a very realistic way, where the only way we can do a better job on the next one is to gather information on this one, to see where we've missed aspects of construction or certain design elements that we couldn't think about or pick up initially. So that's how we get better at predicting. So it's looking at the past, and studying the past is how we get better at predicting the future. It's simple as that. But if we're not allowed to leave the offices where we do the work and come to site and poke and ask questions and ask the foreman and the engineers, why didn't we do it in a different way? Why have you done it a particular way? And if we're not allowed to do that, then we We can't predict the next job is better, you know.
Yeah.
It's simple as that. So it's important that everybody gets to site, estimators especially, and look at the evolution of the whole thing and see that, oh, we could have achieved a faster timeline if we you know, split up certain aspects of the unitary and installed it in phases or different timelines, or broke them up into pieces. How much would that cost extra? So if we allowed for a certain risk on that job, maybe we could have put more risk on that job to reduce the timeline.
Yeah.
Once we understand how that's being installed. So it's a study. It's a study in predicting, you know, the future.
And that's what I noticed, is that the team never stops learning. Like that's the thing with fit outs in the shop fitting industry, is that there's always new materials, there's always new ways of doing things. It's not like residential, it's not large scale commercial, just concrete slabs and some finishes.
Different tools.
It's constantly evolving, constantly changing, and that data needs to be collated, like you're saying, which you've got. That's then, you know, which you then go on to back to contractors and say, why have you allowed this? It doesn't make sense from what our previous data says. Can you please explain why? Are we missing something? And so we're actually able to capture that in the beginning rather than have those conversations later. But the fact that your estimators come to site and are wanting to learn and understand how things actually get built. Like, there's not a lot of estimators that do that. They go off of what they've learnt in university, how to read plans, and what the computer says, compared to actually coming to site.
And large gaps in design, which they have to be filled. So the designers don't know those answers. It's only the trade people that know the answers. But those answers come too late in the job. So you would, like, if someone had to bet, you know, you could bet that you'll consistently have the same problems on every job. It's easy to predict, because the jobs are simple. Nobody knew what the finishes to that wall was before you started building it. Right? Or once you've built it, then you've come to that point, be like, oh, what are we doing here? Right? So that gap should have been filled. Before you got to that stage, and that's what we're trying to do. So there's gaps in design that are always going to exist because of how design is done. Tradies can't fill that gap. Project managers can't fill that gap. There's only one group of people that can, which is the estimation team, because they get to study it in the beginning. So how much knowledge are you feeding into them is going to be, the outcome is based on that. So if you train them well, they're going to be able to predict better and better. It's never going to be zero error, but that error is you can manage that error much better. You'll never have a perfect fit out. You'll never have a perfect estimate. It's never going to happen. So there's no such thing. It doesn't exist. So we're not chasing anything that doesn't exist, but we're chasing a more like efficiency, where you're going to get more and more efficient at putting prices out, and also predicting that, okay, we're going to predict so much profit on this job based on so much error on this job. The only way that happens is for us to get our hands dirty. Like, we have to get our hands dirty.
And doing it in a more controlled manner too.
You know. Understanding schedules and timelines, and money is tied in with time, so we predict costs and time, whether you like it or not. When we determine the budget for this job, we've also determined the budget, like the time budget for the job. You don't have a choice.
And that's been a big value, is knowing whether it's, you know, hours or days or whatever the measurement is for time, whether that's built into a contractor's cost, or whether that's labour that we have to use, that we can bring people in, right from a delivery to off a truck to getting that off that street into here. That you guys actually think about that and work that out and go, right, well, you're going to need 2 labourers to do that.
Try to.
Have we got time for that? Oh yeah, we have, because you put it in there. You've got 5 hours to bring materials onto site or something like that. So that's where most of us builders leak money, so we don't allow for that.
Flooring complexities, you know.
In joinery. Joinery is a lot of joinery, a lot of tiling.
A lot of trade, like even this right here, you know, you've got the plumber, electrician, you've got a steel supplier from a different company, and you've got the joiner there. You know, on this side, you've got even a so there's, you know, it's hardly a single trade. It's at least like 4 or 5 trades to get one aspect done. It's just the age-old story. Like, how do we communicate, and how do we make sure that everyone comes on time and understands that this is what's being built, especially when there was no details on the drawing.
And I think that's the thing, right? Is how I mean, for us as builders, if we want to make sure that our contractors are pricing right, they've picked up on everything, and that's the difference is that the estimation team ensures that the contractors do the best job. That are they interpreting the plans the right way that that they should be? Are they picking up on the detail and doing that due diligence and cross-checking their quotes with the scope of works, with the takeoffs that you sent them, and what the plans say, and what are they missing?
Missing.
I mean, you're always going to miss stuff. But can we reduce that? And that's been that difference. You know, have you seen, like you're saying, have you seen that crossover in trades, scope of works, and pick that up? That's going to be an issue. And you've got to allow for that penetration that trade needs, or something like that. You know, in a piece of joinery or walls and things like that. So,
Yeah, heavy finishes, even like low, like the issue that they're having at the moment with aircon, specs for the aircon and understanding if this is something that's going to work at a later stage in the thing. And to be honest, the fact that we sat down and we had a conversation with the client, even though we weren't involved, because we were hoping that we could get a closure on something that involves us dealing with the whole package.
Yeah, with the landlord, their contractors, their engineers.
Yeah.
And that was the thing, it was interpreting what the plans were, because initially when we started this job, we only had a set of plans. We didn't have access to site.
Yeah.
So we were only going off what those plans were and what the client's information was giving to us at the time to achieve the budget that he wanted. Yeah. And to understand that, especially now with a lot of these exposed ceilings that we've got here now, is the designer wanting bulkheads, but it wasn't clear that there was existing concrete bulkheads here, but they're referring to new bulkheads, and those sort of elements of detail across. Okay, well, how's the aircon duct work and the sprinklers, and how they're going to clash? Again, there's new technology coming in to determine those services and how they're going to overlap and run into each other. Well, we didn't have that on this job.
You never do on small jobs.
No, you never do on small jobs. That's right. And so that's the thing. And also landlord contractors, we don't really know what the scope of works that the landlord's giving their base build contractors. Yeah. And there's some of the issues that have been faced that as a builder we end up having to deal with at the end when the client's not satisfied of what he thought he was getting from, say, a landlord or base build contractor to what he actually needs for his fit out. But the information we do get at the beginning is that, don't worry, they've looked after it. Yeah.
And on top of all of that, we are expected to reduce waste. We're going to have to put a risk factor in there to, like, everything you see, from the floors to the tiles to the lights to the painting, everything involves a certain extra material that we have to allow for. How much? We could be running into massive losses if we order too less, or if we have too much that we have to get rid of at the end. So with design requirements and clients saying they need certain finishes or certain cooling requirements for the job, as every trade needs to build in a risk factor. As an estimation team, we have to get in those minds of the aircon guys or the electrical guys and understand, like, what is your risk factor, and can we operate at a lower risk factor, like put a less percentage of wastage in there to either sell the client a cheaper product, or for us to, in order to sell a cheaper product and make the profit that we're predicting on the job. Yeah, and this is all done when we just have a set of plans, with no access to site, not understanding how the floors are going to be done, finished.
The transitions and, like, what we've experienced on site is completely different than, like you said, what we allow. So it's like tiling and the flooring, which is always the case. The floors are never leveled or anything like that. But the transition between, there was no information around the thickness of each floor finish of each specific tile, and there's over a dozen different tile types on this job, and to understand where those transitions have got to happen. We didn't know there was 60 mil of fall from one end to the other of this site, and to explain to the client what we have allowed for and what we haven't, and what the difference is between a skim coat to a leveling, are two different things. And the biggest part is trying to educate a client. Absolutely. But as a builder, like, how do we have time to do all that when we've got 3 to 7 projects on the go at once? and trying to price everything at the same time,
Yeah.
It's only because the estimators go, hey, Matt, are you aware of this? We picked this up.
Yeah.
Can you relay that to the client? Can you have a conversation?
Yeah. It'd be nice to see a percentage on how much we predicted in terms of unknowns and how close we've got. Like, for example, that wall has 4 different colors, 4 different colors of tiles on it. Like, that wall there has 3 different sizes of tiles on it.
Yeah.
So we've had to order these tiles, and coordinate with the tile suppliers and make sure we had enough. And also understanding like the timeline to install the complexities. How long would it take? Because these tiles they're not monolithic. They're
not
colors.
in a sheet form.
Yeah, they're not in sheet.
They come in several sheets, and we've got to
Yeah.
cut them up and actually make that.
Yeah.
How it goes together.
Make these units. So there's so many little pieces on this job which we constantly have to think about, not having too much waste or too little tiles, all on a set of plans when these several columns are different measurements.
Yeah.
After we got on site. So how do we do that? These are good questions. Like, we constantly think about that. How do we do this on every job? How are we able to come up with a cost that is just right for unpredictable things on site? So.
And with the amount of like variations, like every job has variations.
Yeah.
I mean, we try and reduce what those variations are in the beginning through those exercises of understanding what's missing on the plans and raising that up.
Yeah.
And from memory, I remember that we had those 2 options that you provided around, hey, this is what the plans say, but look, there's about $200,000 worth of extras that aren't on the plans that we know you're going to be up for, and they need to sort of be dealt with now.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about those things and have those discussions.
Yeah.
And who's responsible for them.
Yeah.
So that was really good. And then during the job with all the variations, it's been, so seamless as far as and calm and control the conversations with clients or contractors around variations.
Yeah.
Because we've got so much data now that we've never had before around what was allowed for, the scope of works. Like, for us to have access, or the supervisor on site to have an iPad, and they've got access to every purchase order takeoff, communications with in the estimation, with details around what the contractor's supposed to be doing or what the client's paid for, and then to go back to the clients to go, hey, this is a variation because here we allowed for X amount of square meters, but now on site we've actually got another 10, and we need to buy more tiles, delivery costs, everything like that involved, and to turn around that variation around within a day or 2, have it approved, paid, and we're getting it on site and making it happen. That's where we're saving so much money.
On this job, do you know how many variations we've had on this job? Do you remember the number on this job?
I know the claims are 10.
Claims are 10.
So
you got 10 claims, 10 variations.
Line items of that might be around 70 or...
No, not 10. But 10, like if you say 10 variations, right? Do you know how much of that was actually because the design was wrong? There's about like 3 or 4 of it was because the designs, like we predicted most of the missing spaces, but some of 3 or 4 of them, all of those claims were because of variations that we predicted. For example, like things that we excluded from day one.
Yes.
So exit lights, switchboard works, any plumbing works that we couldn't predict. Anything that we couldn't predict, we listed out, and those are the variations. And they come up to about 3 or 4. I think actually 3.
Right.
The rest of it was additional requests from the client.
Yes.
Scope of works that we never priced in the beginning and the clients asked for. So, if you judge the job from how profitable it is, how much RFIs we've sent out, and just 3 metrics, like say, okay, how profitable is the job, how many RFIs we've sent out, and how many variations we've sent out, and how many of those variations, the 4th category, how many of those variations were because we missed them, right?
Yes.
If you did that, we come out pretty high on every metric. So if you think about how profitable, good prediction of profit. If you think about how many RFIs we've sent out a lot of RFIs, which also talks to how poorly the project was designed. So as a feedback, to the clients, if as estimators would be like, we've sent out, close to 54 RFIs on a job of this size where most of those questions were missing details. You've missed this, and this is to the designer and client.
Yeah.
Like saying to the client, you've missed this detail, what is it? The additional costs that we've sent to the client, the 10 items of variations that we sent through, of that, 3 or 4 of them were items that we intentionally excluded. and said that we are going to charge you for this down the lane in the future. Just be aware. Be aware. So those items are there. So lights were a thing, additional lights for the unit there, exit, switchboard works, plumbing works, all of that was predicted. And then if you think about the rest of those things, the variations, the 6 of them, were additional works that the client needed us to do. And they lumped that on us, and we've had to manage additional works from the client. And this throws us off balance a little bit, but
it's true. There's never been, previously there's like, okay, we haven't allowed for it. We didn't mention it either. Then we've got to go and have this awkward conversation with the client saying, hey, it's not in our quote, but this needs to happen, and you're up for variation. And then they look at us and go, well, why haven't you allowed for that? And I can say that we have not had to have that conversation on this job, which has been really enjoyable. But the fact that, we could use the team to actually have these conversations with the clients because you guys know so much about the fine detail of the costings and everything. You could have those open conversations with the client, and the client will go, okay, I understand. So again, we're prepping the client, we're educating the client, so that when we have time to talk about these issues down the track, it's not a big deal, it's not a surprise. I understand, it was written there.
So
it makes it so much easier for us to run a project as builders with our guys, not having to worry about have we allowed for it, did we mention it, did we say that we excluded it? We flagged it in the beginning, well, you guys did, and everyone benefits of it in how we produce the job.
We're there. We're learning. There's a constant learning process. But the overall pulse of the job is that it has been a good exercise in predicting how it was going to turn out in terms of those aspects like costing, things that we missed or things that the client missed, predicting those things. We did a good scope of works to begin with. That was the first thing that we did with the
scope of works.
Scope of works with the client.
Really good.
They weren't interested, to be honest. Like the client wasn't interested to sit down and go through the scope of works with us, but we had to force them to do it, and it paid off.
We need to know who's responsible for what.
And
and that's the difference. Like previously, sent a set of plans to another estimation company, and what we got back was a long list of items with square meter rates, and per cost, whatever the rates were, and that was sort of it. Off you go. And for us to understand that, or to go back, hey, what does this mean? Oh well, we've allowed $75 a square meter. Okay, but for what? Well, for tiling. Okay. But is it, have you allowed discreet? Have you allowed waterproofing? What have you allowed? Oh no, we haven't allowed waterproofing, you didn't ask for it. I said, well, we need a waterproof. So not having good conversations around building issues that we're going to have to deal with because they're just worried about giving us a price that's within market range. And so then that was a big difference.
You make a very good point, actually. So the 2 floor sections over there, the bar and the grocer sections, even though on the plans it wasn't asked for, the food grade floors, epoxy and waterproofing, our cost initially was higher to the client because we had allowed for these things. And we listed out waterproofing, epoxy floors, epoxy grout to the walls, and epoxy and waterproofing to the entry section there as part of the quote, even though the subcontractors had missed it out. So we did that, even though subcontractors missed it out. We eventually got a subcontractor price for those works, but we had the budget for it. And so we didn't have to go running around, or we submitted the tender on time, even though we didn't get.
And I know that the conversations are so much easier because I say you need to tile it, you need a waterproof, level it off, and tile it with the epoxy. You go, well, I've only allowed to tile it. I said, okay.
Exactly.
Can you give me a price for that? Speak to the team, sort it out. And the approval process is really quick because we don't need to worry about it. We've already got the budget for it. Yes, go ahead, do it. Start when you're supposed to start. There's no delays.
So that's something that even if it was missed during tender stage, that's something that would have gone into a loss. Like it would have eaten the profit because you can't charge the client back for that. So a good builder / estimators have to be good builders, even though they're not builders. They have to train like builders. So a good builder would know that. Right? If you were a sole trader, would know that. So we should be able to gather that type of building knowledge from you and the subcontractors and whoever has the experience, we need to distill that from them, from their minds, and we need to absorb it into a system.
Yes.
And that's how we can just that's how we get consistent work, and that's how consistent predictions of profit. And you don't have to pay for something. The client's never going to pay you for that piece of work just because you missed it, or just because it wasn't in the plans.
Yep.
So many things like the shopfront waterproofing. Shopfront waterproofing. We predicted that you're going to need waterproofing for the shopfront. And on this particular job, we predicted it, and we put it down as an item saying that, hey, we know you need it. We're not going to put any money against it. We're going to charge you down the line.
Yep.
So waterproofing to the shopfront, it's an obvious thing, even though it's not on the plans.
It's required.
Yeah, you can ask us as good builders, as estimators, say, hey, why didn't you think about that?
Yeah.
So we should be able to think about the obvious things and the unobvious things, but the biggest challenge is getting that information from builders.
And that's when we initially met, was that education piece of you educating me why the estimators are so important. And previously it's like, okay, I need to get an estimator. It's $80,000 a year. Look, I assume they just come in, they look at our catalogue, they work it out, read the plans, and they do it, right? We did that a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, and it never worked out because they didn't understand our industry. And they weren't trained in how we did things. And how we did things was not how estimators are trained to do things either, because we're builders. So there's this whole gap and missing piece and frustration piece and so much money wasted. So it's like $80,000 to hire someone, then you've got to train them, you've got to give them computer resources, all sort of thing, spend time with them, which is what you're hoping to do when you hired them. And that isn't just 2 or 3 weeks, it's months. And each job's different. So you go over things over and over again. And the next thing, they've had enough of going, this is too difficult because I don't understand it. Because they don't understand how things get built. And then you go through another one. And you got to do that again. And then you get this delay. And so you can spend 6 to 12 months trying to find the right estimator. And we didn't. And then when we met, you explained to me how building and projects revolve around the estimation. The estimation team is actually the hub of everything, because it starts from the beginning, from that sales process quoting, picking up all those details. And picking up all those details means we can educate the client into knowing, hey, anyone can build. You've got a $500,000 budget. You'll find a shop fitter that'll build it for $500,000. They'll tell you whatever they want. But we're here to educate you and understand and look at your business to go make sure you start on the right foot the best way possible. And the only way you can do that is have the real facts. And that's what we're trying to do. So we'll do that and then explain that, as well as when the project starts, all these conversations with contractors, the clients, the details and knowing what's been allowed for, whether it's like we said earlier, the labour costs involved for deliveries and getting materials on and off-site. All these conversations that would normally be unclear and would be a negotiation is now just a clear, calm, controlled conversation. Have you allowed for it or not? And this is what we have. What have you got? And so everything's so much more controlled. We're not bleeding money through variations. Because if it's a $200 variation, let's put it in, because we're very clear on what we allow for. And that's been a game changer for our business. And also to get those answers that we need throughout the project, in the beginning of the project, it makes us look more professional in our knowledge, because we can give answers really quick. Or everyone's got the data there that you've provided that we've stored in our folders. They've got access to it all. So it's not constantly calling the project manager and the foreman or whoever. They've got it there.
We avoided so much of that. Like the construction manager on this side had access to, like, we would get questions that there's a certain elevation or a certain aspect of a wall that we can't see on the drawings. What did we predict that we had to do? Those are the kind of questions we were getting, and those answers were like, the turnaround for those answers was less than a minute. Everyone could understand. It's like, okay, this is what we predicted was going to go there. This is what we've done, and it kind of became like the memory of the whole organization. Like the whole job ended up becoming like living in someone's mind so quickly. Like the estimators, construction managers, project managers, you could access the memory of the job easy. And that was one of the goals, and it was easy to access that. Missing information every now and then, on the drawings, which we could even find the gaps much easier because we could see the rest of it and feel like, okay, these are big gaps that we need to identify. So,
and we realised that like just became a really big team, support team.
Yeah.
And making a phone call if need be.
Yeah.
We do not have this dimension on site.
Yeah.
And not having to take photos or explain which elevation we're talking about. Yeah. They just knew it after a while. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. No worries. And within minutes, they've gone, done that measurement in their takeoff program. Yeah. Emailed it through. Yeah. Okay. Yep. We've got it here. Yeah. Like, that's fast. Yeah. So that's a huge benefit when you're in the fit industry and everything's about speed and time. Yeah. Like our whole business is speed, and that was the difference with estimators, is that they understand that. Yeah. They understand the urgency. Yeah. And they know that if someone's requesting that, they'll jump on it and they'll prioritise it and they get it done. Yeah. Which means we can keep moving forward while the trades are on site. Not saying, hey, I'll get back to you tomorrow. Yeah. Can you come back? Yeah. We'll sort it out then. Yeah.
The tailors, so an example of that was the tailors. Wanted to have a debate with us about the quantities. So they thought there was a difference in the scope of works. So they wanted to have a debate with us, and then we sent them an email of everything that we requested from the beginning of the job, scope of works, takeoffs, everything, and that debate went away. Yeah. We haven't debated it yet. Yeah. So they haven't come to site to debate it yet.
You're right, and that was a conversation that they were having with us on site that I could then call on the team to go, hey, this conversation's coming up. Yep. I didn't have to deal with it because I didn't know the answers. Yep. And I didn't have the time to go through in that fine detail around what was on site to what was in the scope or what's on the plans. Yep. And next thing I heard, no, it's all sorted. Everyone's happy. Everyone's fine. Yeah.
And if it comes up again, we're prepared for it. So, the goal was to avoid fights towards the end of the job. And it's not zero, but it's very less. It's not zero. It's very less.
It's making building a lot more enjoyable. So, I tell you that, like, especially through these seasons, right? Of,
COVID and everything.
We've gone through a season of material shortages.
Yeah. Holidays.
Now it's labour shortages. Yeah. Even that, it's like a tradesman can't fit in because the schedule's changed. We've lost a contractor to do a certain part of the works. Yeah. Yeah. Please find me another one. Yeah. You go out, tender, hey, this is the job, send all the details again. Yeah. Can you do it? Need you to start in 2 weeks. Yeah. Yep. Okay, we've got you a new one. Yeah. And they fit within budget and they're going to do the scope of works. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, and the building got sold.
And the building got sold 2 days before Christmas.
So all those issues that piled up. So it'd be nice to show the clients. So understand that it's, so much that they can't see that had to go right for them to have an opening of a restaurant the way they've envisioned it. So their designs become part of our vision as well, right? So we had to imbibe whatever they're viewing for their place. Yeah. We've had to take that on, and everyone's been so concerned with making sure we have a good product to give them at the end of the day. Yeah. And then the customers come in here and they have a good time and everything's comfortable and
And that understanding of those like the team. From this job to say like a standard basic office fit out, the difference in material use, right? So how we would problem solve an issue on this site with a material use compared to a lower end office fit out, 2 different things. We have to understand the designer's intent and that if we choose an alternative material, there has to be a specific quality. Yeah. It can't just be something from down the road at the local at Bunnings, or whatever it may be. Is that's been captured and understood. Yeah. So, or the importance of this is something we need to go back to the designer. They need to specify it. Yeah. Because we don't have that authority to make that decision. Yeah. And really understanding that. Yeah. And so those RFIs, will you say 59, 54?
Plus 54. 54
RFIs. Yeah. Yeah. And they're detailed RFIs, right?
Yeah. Asking specific questions.
I've seen a lot of them. Yeah. Have gone through the emails, the images of the plans or the takeoffs or photos off site. Yeah.
Colors to the shop front, which weren't specified, rivets, trims, inlays, joinery inlays, the molding sizes. What do you want? How do you want us to close a certain aspect of the, like switchboards and So many things that we had to ask the client for, and they've been good with getting back to us in time.
Yeah, and it's typically not just a one response email.
Yeah.
It normally actually has to go back
Yeah.
several times.
Yeah.
So, those RFIs, those conversations, those emails can be up into 200-300 emails back and forth to get a solution in a timely manner as well.
And tracking each one of them. So and we've done it with low-end software. I would say, like, you can buy softwares that can take care of all this data flow, varied data flows, and so different from each other, and you're trying to connect them to the relevant themes. You can get a software to that, but we've done it with just emails and just common sense. Just list them out, remember the names, change the numbers. It's just common sense to track where we are. So we have, we with data, understanding like, oh, we've done these things that weren't correct. We should have on the next project, be it any project. We've got so much information now. Yeah, we've got information that we can use, usable information. Yeah,
you keep collating that information.
Yeah.
And like you said, like I've always looked for off-the-shelf softwares to help do our whole business. Yeah. And over the years, I learned there is no software that does every part of the business. Yeah. And especially around what you guys do, I mean, you've got a process, you've got systems in place, but most of all, it's actually the team, it's the people that
just
have
common
been
sense.
Exactly within knowing how the industry works and what's required. It's just not a software that I could use to do that with. It's just it's not an option. So it's been good.